Hello friends, my name is Ramsu. Today we shall discuss about a topic that what is project stakeholder. Friend, today's topic is very interesting, especially if you have interest in PMP or you are planning to give exam of project management in near future, or you are already working somewhere as a project manager. So this is a very interesting and important topic for you to understand the project stakeholder. So let's start, friend. First of all, I request to please subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell option as well, so that my new videos can reach to you, and also you can follow me on the Facebook page as well. So what is project stakeholder, friend? Friend, who are your project stakeholders and how can you work with them to ensure better outcomes for your project? So here is why project stakeholders are so much important. A project is a collaborative effort. Even though you are in charge of managing it, in order for the project to be successful, you still need to rely on, work with and report back to other people. Throughout this video, we have been talking a lot about the various people involved in taking a project from idea to execution: your team, other departments within the organization, leadership, clients and more. These people are your project stakeholders, but what does that mean exactly? How do your stakeholders affect your project and what can you do to keep them happy? Now, what is the exact definition of a project stakeholder? Friend, according to the Project Management Institute, project stakeholders are defined as individuals and organizations who are actively involved in the project, or whose interest may be positively or negatively affected as a result of project execution or successful project completion. In other words, your project stakeholders are the people or groups who have something to gain or lose from your project outcome. So, according to the project stakeholder definition, a stakeholder is anyone with an interest or investment in your project. But what does it mean actually looks like in practice? Not only that, but the list of stakeholders can change throughout the project's journey. A certain stakeholder's influence might become more or less important depending on the project phase. For example, your job as a project manager is to keep all stakeholders informed, involved and on board throughout the project's progression. Stakeholders' happiness is one of the key metrics of a successful project. So, making sure you get the right buy-in and tick the right boxes at the right time is very crucial. Ultimately, managing those complex stakeholder relationships is one of the key skills of a project manager, but with so many different interests, perspectives and personalities to juggle, it's no easy feat. So, who are the stakeholders in a project? Now that you know the answer to the question what are project stakeholders, the natural next question is who are the stakeholders in a project? As we have already seen in the project stakeholder definition, that a stakeholder is anyone with interest or investment in your project, but when you actually start to map that out, you might be surprised by how long the list can be. That's because investment in your project can take a number of different forms. It can be the company money, an executive's sponsorship or a manager's resources. It can also apply to the end user or customer, as their needs are a critical consideration when it comes to steering your project. Types of stakeholders in project management. There are two main types of stakeholders in project management. One is internal and then external. Internal stakeholders, these stakeholders are coming from within the house. Internal stakeholders are people or groups within the business, such as team members, managers, executives and so on. External stakeholders, External stakeholders are, as you can probably guess, people or groups outside the business. This includes customers, users, suppliers, and investors. As you can understand, stakeholders don't always work for the project managers. Needless to say, this can add an extra layer of complexity, as you need to be able to communicate with people at all different levels of the business and with varying degree of engagement, influence, and interest. Examples of stakeholders in a project. The stakeholders in each particular project will vary depending on the type of project and industry, but here are a few examples of the types of stakeholders in project management you might need to consider. Project manager, team member, manager, resource manager, executive, senior management, company owners, investors, sponsor, financiers, suppliers, vendors, consultants, customer, end user. So, these are the stakeholder. How to do a stakeholder analysis? As soon as your project charter is complete and the scope of your project is defined, you can use it to start mapping out your stakeholders. So, here is how to get the ball rolling with a basic stakeholder analysis process. First one is identify your stakeholders. First step, you need to identify who your stakeholders actually are. To do this, draw on your project charter and any other project plans and documentation to compile a full list of your project stakeholders, both internal and external. Bear in mind that some stakeholders wouldn't come into play until later in the project life cycle, but if you can anticipate who they will be in advance, you can start to get their buy-in, build the relationship from the outset, and help them to feel involved from the beginning. Prioritize your stakeholders. Once you have identified all of your stakeholders, you can start to prioritize them. Prioritizing your stakeholders is important because it helps you understand where to invest your resources. In other words, it helps you as the project manager to identify who the key decision makers are at any given moment, so you can ensure that you are talking to the right people at the right time. There are few methods of doing this stakeholder prioritization, but one simple way is to plot them out using a power or interest, influence or impact grid. The power/interest grid helps you to identify your key stakeholders by answering two key questions that help you to group them into one of your categories. What level of power do they have? How important is it that they are happy with the project's progress and result? How integral are they to the project's success? How influential are they to the project, to other stakeholders, to their team, and so on? Remember that a stakeholder's influence can be positive or negative. What level of interest do they have? Is this project super important to them, or are they only tangentially connected to it? Is it something they are directly accountable for? Are they reliant on it for other work or result? Are they opposed to the project or concerned about it in some way? Stakeholders who fall into the top right quadrant, powerful plus interested, are the ones you should giving extra attention to, because they are the ones who can have the most impact on your project for better or for worse. Understand your stakeholders. Now that you know who the key players are and which ones to prioritize, you need to get a full grasp of their expectations for the project. For key stakeholders, this might involve meeting up for a short face-to-face interview or conversation where you discuss things like what their definition of project success look like, any concern or reservations they have about the project and its outcome, what their expectations for the project are, what impact a positive or negative project outcome would have on them, whether there are any anticipated conflicts of interest with other stakeholders that you need to be aware of. Not only will these conversations help you to understand each stakeholder's involvement in and outlook on the project, but it also helps you to build a bigger picture of your stakeholder network and how each stakeholder interrelates. And on a personal level, meeting with the key stakeholders at the beginning of the project helps you to feel out some basic interpersonal preferences like communication style, as well as start building your relationships with each stakeholder. As you are doing this, it's also helpful to keep your eyes open for any political, cultural, or environmental cues. If you can picking up on things like the political climate of the organization, how your key stakeholders interact with each other, and any potential conflicts of interest can help to give you some essential context when it comes to running your project or preempting certain decisions. And it's a project manager superpower that you should start cultivating as soon as possible. How to manage your project stakeholders? Identifying your stakeholders and their needs is just one piece of the stakeholder management, but it doesn't end there. For a successful project, your key stakeholders' requirements, project objectives, and happiness should be an ongoing concern throughout your project. Now, that doesn't mean that the stakeholder is always right, and your job as a project manager will sometimes involve pushing back on your stakeholders and rebalancing their expectations with the project charter and project plan you all agreed on the start. The tricky part is in balancing everyone's needs, requirements, and objectives so you can keep your stakeholders happy while also delivering the project you set out to deliver. So, friend, thanks a lot for watching the video. I hope you like this video. If you like it, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and thanks a lot for watching the video. Thank you, friends.